I can't do this. I cannot do this.
Round 911, where's your emergency?
Yes, I'm calling. My son had come home from school. Kendrick Johnson.
You know, she said, have you heard from Kendrick? 12 o'clock, I knew he was dead.
The body had been moved. The scene, in my opinion, had been compromised.
When they said he climbed inside the mat to get the shoes, I already knew that was a lie.
We opened the body in this particular case, and the organs were not there. Paper had been stuffed into the cavity to fill it up.
Body parts are missing, evidence is missing.
And we tested it, and it was blood. And we did DNA testing, and it was not the blood of Kendrick Johnson.
If it wasn't Kendrick blood, who blood was it?
The parents hired their own medical examiner who said this was a killing.
An FBI agent's home was raided last month in connection with the investigation into the death of a Valdosta teenager.
Supporters for Kendrick's family are calling for a Department of Justice investigation.
What do you want? Justice!
The Johnsons and their supporters now hope the FBI will get an answer to what happened to Kendrick Johnson.
All along, we know it was bullshit. We know it was bullshit.
If KJ had been white, we wouldn't have had to make this film.
In January 11, 2013, the body of 17-year-old Kendrick Johnson was found in the most unusual of circumstances, upside down and rolled up in a school gym mat. The mysterious death of Kendrick Johnson was initially ruled an accident by law enforcement, but his family was not convinced. The initial autopsy revealed that Johnson died due to positional asphyxia, or that he suffocated as a result of being stuck upside down in an enclosed space for an extended period of time. Just after 24 hours of being found, the investigators ruled Johnson's death an accident. The sheriff's department asserted that Johnson must have accidentally fallen into the center of the mat while reaching for a sneaker, which he had stored there so as not to have to pay for a lopper. But Johnson's parents felt that his death was not being taken seriously, in part because of his race or because a larger cover-up was at play. Kendrick Johnson lived with his family in Valdosta, Georgia, and attended Lowndes High School. His family and friends described him as a sweet and quiet boy. He was a three-sport athlete and dreamed of playing professional football. But those dreams were cut short when his body was found by students entering the gymnasium rolled up in a standing gym mat. His sneakers were shoved behind his knees. But investigators quickly closed their case on the theory that Johnson had simply fallen into the mat while reaching for one of his sneakers. Indeed, when the mat was first unrolled, Johnson did have one arm stretched above his head and the other down around his waist as though struggling for his shoe. He was just in his socks. Students had also told police that it was common for them to leave their belongings in the mats when they didn't want to pay for a lopper. The mat in which Johnson was found was around 6 feet tall. When rolled up, the mat left a 14-inch hole in diameter in the center. Johnson's shoulders measured 19 across, and he was 5 feet 10 inches tall. It seemed possible that if Kendrick was trying to squeeze into the center of the mat, he could have scrunched his shoulders together to make himself narrower. But his parents would later maintain that his size versus the size of the mat alone was enough to debunk the investigators' case. Almost a full day had passed until Johnson had been discovered. As he was upside down, blood would have rushed to Johnson's head, and he eventually would have begun to bleed from his facial orifices. But this is one of the most baffling mysteries of this case. The black and white gym shoe that lay on the ground below Kendrick Johnson, the one he was presumed to be reaching for, was lying on top of a pool of blood. But there was no blood on the shoe itself. A hoodie and a pair of orange and black gym shoes were also found lying on the floor of the gym, as well as traces of blood on the wall nearby. Investigators tested the blood, which revealed that it did not belong to Kendrick Johnson. They also reported that the blood had likely been there for a long time. Investigators did not take the hoodie and orange and black gym shoes into evidence. Johnson's parents were suspicious of the investigation from the beginning. They believed that the sheriff's department was too quick to rule out foul play as a cause for Johnson's death, considering that within 24 hours of finding Kendrick Johnson's body, they concluded that it was an accident. The Johnsons were also sure that their son's body had been moved, which was corroborated by Lowndes County Coroner Bill Watson. Georgia state law dictates that the coroner be contacted immediately on the discovery of a body, but Watson claimed that he was not notified until 6 hours later. Furthermore, Johnson's parents argued if this was an accident, how could no one have heard Kendrick call for help in a high school of over 3,000 students? Johnson's parents finally believed that their son's death was not being taken seriously because of his race. Kendrick Johnson was black, and the Lowndes County Sheriff, Chris Prines, and his investigators were all white. Indeed, in 2013, racism in Valdosta, Georgia, was still very much alive. The family's attorney, Chevy King, expressed that if Kendrick had been white, the case would have been handled differently. Kendrick Johnson's parents released a photo to the media of their son's face as he lay in the funeral home. The photo, in which Kendrick Johnson's face is extremely swollen, almost does not look human. The public was horrified by the photo and began to rally around the Johnsons in their quest for the truth. On May 8, 2013, a judge granted Kendrick Johnson's body be exhumed. A private pathologist was hired to carry out a second autopsy. This time, the autopsy revealed that Kendrick Johnson had suffered hemorrhaging on the right side of his neck, which meant that he likely died from blunt force trauma. The pathologist concluded his death was not an accident. On top of this, the second autopsy revealed that some of Johnson's organs were missing, and in their place, his body had been stuffed with newspaper. The Georgia Bureau of Investigations, GBI, claimed that when the body was sent to the funeral home after the first autopsy, Johnson's organs had been put back inside the body. However, the coroner said these organs were not sent to the funeral home because they were too decomposed and were instead disposed of beforehand. The funeral home said that it received the body without organs, which it replaced with paper or sawdust, as is common practice while embalming. The Johnsons did try to sue the funeral home for mishandling their son's body, and perhaps having done so in order to cover up his true cause of death, but this case was dropped. Regardless, the organs were lost and could not be tested during the second autopsy, which further aroused suspicions in Johnson's parents that this was a cover-up. As a result of this new evidence, Matthew Moore, the U.S. Attorney for the Middle District of Georgia, announced a formal review of the case. The Johnsons hoped for a coroner's inquest, which would begin the process of reclassifying the cause of Kendrick Johnson's death as non-accidental and reopening the investigation. The request, however, was denied, even though the coroner Bill Watson had originally expressed a lack of confidence in the sheriff department's handling of the case. CNN gained access to the school's security footage on the day that Kendrick Johnson was killed, but upon viewing it, realized that it offered little insight into what happened that day. The cameras which faced the mats were unfocused and skipped around. All that could be seen from the cameras was Kendrick Johnson walking towards the gym, and then several seconds of footage of him jogging within the gym. He was never shown within or leaving the gym, and indeed, he never did show up for his following classes. Furthermore, a whole hour of footage from the gym was missing right at the time, which would have shed light on what happened that day. This finding further increased the confidence of doubters that this death was an accident. Then, in 2014, Kendrick Johnson's parents filed a wrongful death suit against the school's officials, alleging that Johnson had been harassed by a white student which was neglected by the school, perhaps due to his race. Ebony.com described the murder of Johnson to have been at the hands of two white brothers, though they did not include names. The description of these brothers closely resembled that of Brian and Brandon Bell, who the magazine claimed had killed Kendrick because of a fight they had had over a year earlier, which had escalated. The Johnsons also accused the brothers' father, an FBI agent at the time, of covering up the murder by manipulating the school and authorities involved in investigating Johnson's death. In 2015, the Johnsons filed a $100 million civil lawsuit against 38 people, including 3 of their son's classmates, the school, the local crime lab, state and federal officials, 5 agents of the GBI, an FBI agent, and more. The parents asserted that the sons of the FBI agent killed Johnson and used their connections to cover up the investigation. In June 2016, the Department of Justice announced no charges would be filed against anyone in relation to Kendrick Johnson's death, considering there wasn't sufficient evidence to support federal criminal charges. As far as the feds were concerned, the case was officially and finally closed. The findings of the second autopsy, that Johnson's death was not accidental and caused by blunt force trauma likely due to being struck in the neck with a 40 kg dumbbell, were confirmed. In June 2018, Kendrick Johnson's body was exhumed for a second time and a third autopsy was performed. The findings of the second autopsy that Johnson's death was not accidental and caused by blunt force trauma likely due to being struck in the neck with a 40-50 dumbbell were confirmed. Kendrick Johnson's parents hoped that with the results of this third autopsy, the surveillance footage, which they were convinced had been tampered with, and the mishandling of evidence at the scene would be enough to reopen their son's case.
Now, a Channel 2 Action News investigation into the mystery surrounding the death of a Valdosta teenager found in an upright gym mat at school. Two young men at the focus of the Kendrick Johnson controversy have declined to talk to investigators, a grand jury, and an on-camera interview until now. Channel 2 investigative reporter Mark Winnie live outside FBI headquarters in DeKalb County with these exclusive interviews. Mark?
And at last check, this case remained a focus of federal investigation. But we are outside the FBI's Atlanta field office because that is where we're told Agent Rick Bell was assigned, and both his sons are the subject of target letters from a federal prosecutor. And now we hear from them at last.
I'm going to ask my photographer to push in tight on your face.
Okay.
Our viewers can read your expression. Did you have anything to do with the death of Kendrick Johnson?
No. He was like one of my good friends.
Even at the time of his death?
Even at the time of his death.
You know, every word we broadcast of this is going to be scrutinized by the blogosphere, the Twitter sphere, and so on.
Yes, sir. It should be. And I want everybody to know the truth. And I mean, they can ridicule me and they can say whatever they want, but in the end, the truth will prevail. And everybody will find that me and my brother have been innocent and always will be innocent.
We've just heard what family attorneys acknowledge. Sheriff's deputies, the GBI, and a federal grand jury have not heard. Brothers Brian and Brandon Bell answering questions, no holds barred, about the mysterious death of Kendrick Johnson in 2013.
He was the laughter of our house. He was the joy of our house, and he gives us strength to keep fighting.
The Lowndes County Sheriff says after a thorough investigation, his office agrees with the state medical examiner that Johnson's death was an accident due to positional asphyxia, that he wedged himself in a rolled-up gym mat trying to reach a shoe and could not get out. But Kendrick Johnson's mom takes issue with that.
Are you more convinced today than ever that KJ was the victim of foul play?
Yes.
And with some of what the Bells say.
No, they weren't friends.
And in a lawsuit, Johnson's parents allege a group, including the Bell brothers, sons of an FBI agent, violently assaulted their son, leading to his death.
None of the allegations that were made were without research.
But both Bells maintain they have rock-solid alibis.
Did you see Kendrick Johnson?
No, sir, not at any point during that day.
Where were you?
I was in class. First block, second block, third block, and fourth block.
Close to the gym?
No.
Did you see Kendrick that day?
No. I did not.
The suit suggests the brothers sought revenge for a brief fight between Brian and Kendrick on a team bus.
A year before, I mean,
what was
we're
that
still
about,
friends.
Anyway?
So I can't even remember. I mean, it was so small to us, like it was ridiculous.
Your brother had a football scholarship offered to FSU.
Yes, sir, he did.
They pulled it back.
On signing day.
So how low did you get?
To the lowest you can go.
Letters from the Macon U.S. Attorney's Office suggest both Bells are targets of grand jury investigation. The letters suggest possible civil rights violations.
My objective is to only get justice for my son.
Have you prayed for the Johnsons?
Yes, sir. I have. I hope that they found justice, and I hope that they do find out the truth about their son.
I pray for the truth to come out about what happened to my son.
One thing we kept hearing over and over again was about this missing FBI report regarding the security tape hard drive and the blacked out footage. So we looked into finding that report to see if we could locate it, and we did. However, the report was heavily redacted. But then we were able to find the unredacted FBI report, and what we discovered blew us away. You see, in the redacted report, you can barely see any of the video frames. Most of the frames are blacked out, and the ones with KJ are barely recognizable. In the unredacted report, We were able to see all the video frames in full color. The report follows KJ, Brian, and Brandon's movement throughout the school for the entire day and records where they were. Not only is this further video evidence that the Bell boys were on campus when KJ went missing, we found something that the FBI clearly didn't want us to see. Let us put them side by side so you can see what we found. Here they are. Can you see something a little odd? Look closely. There appears to be a frame on both pages that matches. How could this be? What tipped us off is KJ's yellow folder. We were going through Brian's movements and all of a sudden, KJ's folder appeared on screen. That's right, there's a frame on KJ's side and Brian's side that is identical. The boys are standing seemingly right next to each other in the hallway.
Did you see Kendrick that day?
No. I did not.
Seeing the alleged killer of KJ standing next to him in the hallway the day he died in school has sent chills down our spines. How did no one see this frame? How did the FBI let this go? Why did it take 6 years and an independent filmmaker to find this? These are all questions that may never go answered. But what we do know for sure is that we have more facts now than we ever had, and this case needs to be reopened and re-examined with a fine-tooth comb.